This video is brought to you by echopluxmedia.com.
And join me now on It's All Conspiracy is Dan from the best podcast on Alex Jones on the internet, Knowledge.
Thank you. It's good to be here. We might have that market cornered because there may not be many others, but we do what we can.
I'll start the show by introducing us both. We're both a couple of dudes who like to sit around, drink novelty beverages, and talk a little bit about Alex Jones. Is that correct?
That is. I got some Coca-Cola today. Not very novel, but it'll do.
I got Glacier Sparkle Water. I think that's how you pronounce it. Basically carbonated water.
Nice. Refreshing.
So, Dan, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. I've been listening to your show practically since I started the page when someone recommended it to me. Mm-hmm. Could you give us a little intro about what your show's about?
Yeah, it's kind of it's hard to explain, but basically we just take like a day in Alex Jones's career, like one episode of his show generally, and I pull clips of it and discuss why he's wrong about various things, and then me and my co-host Jordan just laugh about how stupid he is for the most part, and then also discuss the implications of what's behind why he's lying about things, which I think is a very important piece that a lot of people miss. Like, you can debunk things, and that's great. It's really important to do that. But if people don't understand why the lie exists, then you have a much harder time understanding what use it is to people, if that makes sense. So that's the show. We just make fun of Alex and explain that kind of stuff.
That's the thing I've been wishing for a long time. There's some show that talks nothing but Alex Jones. Like, occasionally, like podcasts you listen to will occasionally bring up something stupid Alex Jones says because it's funny. Mm-hmm. But like, I've wanted a show where people talk about Alex Jones all the time, man. You're my dream come true.
Oh, thank you. I think that I'm my own too, because like I think I was exactly in the same situation as what you're describing before we started the show. I thought, like, I would like to hear a show like the one we've created, and so that's why I set about creating it, because I couldn't find it.
What gave you the idea to start the show?
Sort of in the lead up to the election, I just started to notice how weird he was, I guess. Like, I'd listened to Alex Jones in college, maybe not college, might have been a little bit after that. My timeline's a little screwy, but in younger years, I'd listened to him and thought he was entertaining and just sort of dismissed him. But I always knew that he was sort of just a super paranoid guy who thought that everything was some sort of an evil plan. So in the lead up to the election, noticing him side with Trump struck me as really weird, because it didn't seem like it didn't make a lot of sense with the image that I had of him. And so I started to listen to his show slightly for entertainment and slightly because I was curious about that. And the more I listened, the more I realized that something was very wrong with what he was doing. And I just wanted to figure out what that was, because it wasn't clear. Like, I knew he was lying, and that part was obvious. But I couldn't quite get what was, like, why is this isn't politics. Like, whatever he's talking about and like what he is about isn't, it just wasn't clear, and I wanted to know more. So I dug into it, and then me and Jordan hung out. We used to do stand-up together, and we'd known each other and good friends. And one day we were at the bar, and we were just having a few beers, and I was like, I think I want to do a show about Alex Jones. And he's like, let's do it. So, it just sort of, it happened very organically and very, very weirdly. Like, there wasn't a lot of planning to it or anything, just sort of like, let's try this. And then we, went from there.
Could you give us a little bit more background about both you and Jordan's careers in comedy?
I mean, for myself, there's not much of a background. I mean, I did stand up for like 8 or 9 years or so, but that doesn't mean anything really in terms of a career. I opened for some marginally famous comics and did festivals and stuff like that, but that's not really any real success. Like, Jordan gets around and does clubs now, and he's at Zanies from time to time, and he has much more of an interest in that being a path that he continues down. Whereas I quit a few years back, and I don't really have any intention of doing it anymore. So no real super big careers.
For those who listen to the podcast, well, I listen to podcasts, and I like to hear your stories about different jobs you've had.
Good God.
Yeah, they're pretty fun.
I haven't even scratched the surface of some of that stuff. Like, I have a lot more times I've been fired from places in my younger days.
So you and I, both being long listeners of Alex Jones, I being an ex-fan, going back to 2009, and both of us have noticed this the radical shift in Alex Jones and how he presents himself, how he views the world, or different positions he has on different conspiracy theories. That he just changed like that after Trump became president.
Mm-hmm. Things like the FEMA camps and Posse Comitatus,
Rex 84, flip-flopping, yeah.
He's completely invalidated a lot of his old career. If you don't mind me asking, what made you not like him anymore? I guess, or what was your breaking point?
Education. I went to college. I took some foreign policy classes, and I heard my professor talk about what was called the New World Order. I was like, oh my God, this is going to get validation for my beliefs. And then when I found out the proper context of it, I was like, okay, what else is he lying about?
That's interesting. So, I mean, that's a good that speaks volumes about like that it can be done. You know, people can like him and believe the things he's saying, and then be exposed to reality, and it has a chance of making a difference. So that's actually great.
When you listen to him in college, you were never a fan, right?
It's hard for me to say. I wasn't a fan, but I also wasn't not a fan. I was more amused, and it was very sporadic. I was aware of him as a figure because I've always, like, for a long time been super amused by conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So I would go on like message boards and Reddit, and I would just read things. I didn't believe them, but I would read them for entertainment. And so I always knew of Alex as like a huge figure in that world. But I wouldn't say I was a fan when I was listening every now and again. And I mean, the really crazy thing that I was thinking about is like, we've now done long breakdowns of his documentaries Endgame and the Obama Deception. And I know for a fact that when I was younger, I watched at least the Obama Deception and didn't think there were huge problems with it. Like, I just watched it with completely uncritical eyes, like, wow, this is a guy saying stuff. It's really bizarre how much things change when you pay attention, I guess.
Yeah, now that I went on this crusade when it came to his documentaries. I would make copies of DVDs and have them ready to distribute to everyone. There are clips of it on, yeah, there are clips of it because it says on the back of those DVDs, copy and share. So because he wants this thing to be spread around. But that never came through, thank God.
You had plans to like basically distribute his documentaries
like a Jehovah's Witness, yes.
Wow. Going door to door with crazy nonsense. Man. It's good that you didn't follow through with that.
Yeah. Mark Dice, he's another guy that's been successful like Alex Jones after Trump.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, he got his career started being a frequent guest on the Alex Jones show, and he but there's been a feud. I haven't been able to figure out exactly what it was, but he's gotten into fights with Alex Jones, then got back on, and even retracted a lot of the videos that were critical of him.
Yeah, he scrubbed his YouTube channel of all the like, I think it was like a weekly thing that he would do is release a video making fun of Alex. It was over book royalties. Alex Jones was late on a payment or said he wasn't going to be able to pay Mark for some books that they sold in the InfoWars store. I believe this is back in like 2011. And Mark Dice got really mad at him and started talking shit, saying he was a sensationalist and he's a liar, and that he makes everything up. And Then a little bit. Oh, and he also was saying that he's a strat for CIA shill, all that kind of nonsense. And then I guess they got the payment thing worked out, and a year later he was totally fine, and they were friends again, and he pretends that stuff never happened. But that's because these people are all like habitual liars. They're all con men trying to work cons. And so, like, if you get in the way of my hustle, I'm going to burn you. But then, if we can work together on a bigger deal later, I'm going to pretend that I never did that to you. It's crazy. I mean, if you look at Mark Dice's career, he has all kinds of like, he used to be a pickup artist guy. He wrote a book about that. He had a memory scam that he was running, like an improve your memory quick kind of thing that he was doing before he got into all this conspiracy world. And like, so you just see that there's a pattern of trying to figure out which shoe is going to fit. And I don't know. I think they couldn't be any more transparent. They're all like, it's so see-through what they're doing. But, and he's one of the worst. He's one of the most see-through of them all. Like he's and he's like bafflingly untalented. He's so not funny. His videos are terrible. He's very confusing. I don't get why anyone likes him, but you know, so he must scratch some itch for people. I'm not sure what that is, but you seem particularly interested in him because you you said you wanted to cover him, and I'm interested in why you're particularly interested in him. Is it just because of the feud thing?
Both that and that he's more transparently a charlatan. Like he's not like I've made the case that he's trying to retract a lot of his previous views because being a Trump supporter and being a 9/11 truther half your career, that's not really something that's going to fly. And another thing, he posted a video that was critical of the Sandy Hook truthers, including Alex Jones. Mm-hmm. And he scrubbed that from his channel. Did you ever hear about that?
I'm not in specific, but that does make sense.
Oh yeah.
What was the situation with that?
This was right after the Sandy Hook massacre when he was talking about people's conspiracy theorist responses to it, including Alex Jones saying that it was a false flag. He even called Jones king of conspiracy. So.
Well, I mean, that would have had to have been around the time that they had that pay dispute because, you know, it was at the end of 2012 was when Sandy Hook happened. And, 2011 at some point was when they had their falling out. That kind of matches with that timeline.
Yeah, he's even said on the record that those who claim the Sandy Hook shooting was fake deserve to be sued. He said, wow. I hope they sue your asses, he says.
In that case, Alex is going to have even more trouble paying his books, those fees in the future. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty gross. And those moments like that, what you're describing with Mark Dice, where he's like critical of Sandy Hook conspiracy theorists, that's what really bums me out, is those moments of like almost decency that you have when you see that people are capable of that, and they must not be behaving that way intentionally in other circumstances. That makes me profoundly depressed.
Something else I want to add, because when we tried to schedule the interview, you had to make a show covering the Joe Rogan saga of Alex Jones' return.
We did way too long of an episode about that.
I sat through 3 hours. Like I could only get through past 3 hours, but it was, oh my God.
Yeah, Alex, his recent appearance on Rogan was definitely embarrassing. I mean, he behaved in such a way as to try and poach Joe's audience, because I think that's his new scam. I think he realizes that like whatever he's like his well is running dry, and there's not much left for him to do in the Trump world or the conspiracy world, but he could pivot into sort of like new agey stuff, add that new layer to his already existing rhetoric, and see if he can't tap into that world on YouTube and the internet. And I think it's just it's very transparent. It's super see-through if you just pay attention. It's clearly what he's doing.
And that's another thing with both of us watching Alex Jones for a long time. He didn't say this shit about aliens or interdimensional beings creating human chimeras or something.
Nope. Nope, he did not.
It just begs the question: what made him think this would, was he losing his audience and he had to reach and dig bigger holes?
Yeah, I think that's probably a part of it. I think that's probably, and I think it's also a thing where he's running into a situation where more people are paying attention to him, And the more people who pay attention to him, that's a big problem for him because what he says doesn't make sense. And he's lying about primary sources, and eventually that'll catch up to him. Like, he's gotten to fly under the radar and manipulate people for a really long time. But I think that as, evidenced by all of his bans from social media and heightened coverage on places like Right Wing Watch and stuff like that, that pay more attention to him in the last few years than they had before, I think that he realizes that he has to pull a little distraction trick. And one of the easy ways you can do that is be like, okay, all this stuff that I'm saying doesn't make sense. But what if I were to tell you that it's all based on the fact that aliens are having secret meetings with generals? It's completely non-disprovable. I can't sit there and be like, no, they didn't, and I'll prove it, or anything like that. So he's adding a new layer onto his rhetoric that he can fall back to whenever people challenge him. It's a pretty basic manipulation trick. It's something that serious people don't do, but it's a good move for him. I think it might extend his career a little bit. But you're totally right. Like, he's presenting it like on the Rogan episode. He was talking about how he's known about that for 20 years. The aliens were giving orders to the military and stuff like that. So what I come away with that is either he's lying or he's telling the truth, and he never talked about that before, which kind of means he was, I don't know, helping the aliens who are controlling the military by not exposing it. I don't know. It's all very dumb, but it's more interesting than some of the things he says. I'll give him that.
I think it has to do with him trying to, like, I think that, you know who William Cooper is, right?
Yeah.
I think he's trying to, I think William Cooper has gotten more popular now than he has a couple decades ago, mainly because his work has been posted on the internet, and he's got fans that worship him at the grave.
Oh yeah,
but I think
he lived his principle to a certain extent. Like, to the effect of shooting at cops and getting killed instead of backing down and paying his damn taxes. So, like, yeah, I think that, he does. He has a rabid fan base. So you think that Alex is trying to cash in on him, like his sort of, because he had more aliens in his worldview, or at least he did for a while.
Yeah, and then he retracted it, and also the difference between him and Jones is that if he had a caller on, he wouldn't say that. He wouldn't say, you know what, he wouldn't go along with whatever the caller was saying. If he couldn't verify it, he wouldn't go along with it.
That's true. Yeah, I've listened to a number of episodes of his show where he's scolding callers. In fact, which I think is very interesting. And it's also interesting that your theory, because Alex, one of his things about Bill Cooper is always saying that he is like dumb and into aliens and stuff like that. Was one of his big criticisms of Bill Cooper. And so, it is interesting to see him be like, actually, all that stuff was true. The military is taking orders from demonic aliens. It's weird. It's an interesting way to end a career, but
and also he retracted the alien claims. Like, he stood by everything else in the book, but which is kind of awkward because the aliens made up. I read the book. It makes up a substantial portion of the book.
So he retracted that, but that's like 3/4 of the book. So it stands by about a sliver of it. 2 chapters were good. I regret the rest.
Yeah, and he even said in the book that he could have been duped by the government. They put out fake documents to fool him.
Sure, you hear that from time to time from people.
Yeah,
I admire that on some level. That ability to be like, I might be wrong, but here's what I'm gonna say. I might be wrong. It's kind of restrained a little bit.
This is something that's become a running gag on your show about Alex Jones killing a guy.
Only kind of a gag.
I've been trying to figure out I've dissected it. I've looked up possible incidents he might be referring to. Have you found out anything? Like, for those who don't know, Jones said abruptly on his show when talking about Google wanting to kill him, saying that he's never killed anybody, but he's technically killed one guy a few years.
Yeah. There's an awkward pause, and then he's like, well, there was that one guy. I'm like, what what are you talking about?
And have you found out any update on that, seeing what he could have been talking about?
I don't know. I'm not super interested in digging into it because, for one thing, I just will take him at his word and tell him he's a murderer or something like that. Like, why not? I don't care. It's if he's making it up, it's stupid. If he's telling the truth, it's insane. But one of the reasons I don't care to look into it too much is like the methods and the ways that I do research would not be able to figure this out because what he's referring to is most likely something that happened when he was much younger. And so it would have probably been a fight or something like that he ends up, I don't know. He's talked a bunch of times about smashing people's heads into concrete, or on the Rogan episode towards the end of it when he's really high, he's talking about how some guy gave him a pile driver on concrete, and then Alex got up, punched him in the throat, and caused a tracheotomy, and the guy almost died. So there are those stories, and part of it is probably bravado and lying, like masculine lying. But even if it's not, it would have been when he was young. And so it would have been a juvenile record. It would have been expunged from his record once he became an adult. So I don't think that finding evidence of that would be easy. And then it would also just be an assault, because if the guy died from the injuries or whatever down the road, then no one charged him with murder or even like manslaughter or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't think it's possible to know whether it's real or not. And so I'll err on the side of it being real because it's funnier for our purposes.
And we'll update if anything does come up. But for now, it makes a great running gag.
And I think that in the Rogan episode, it's probably one of those things that he's embellishing, like those stories of those fights that he's talking about. Like he literally said on Rogan's show, the first time that he smashed someone's head into concrete, he got really high from it. He felt really high from causing physical pain to somebody. And so, like, I don't know how much that is real, but those stories that he's telling, I would assume those could lead to someone's death down the road. So if I had to guess, I would say it's probably that, like some sort of dumb fight he was in. I don't
know. Speaking of fights, Jones is in the fight of his life with all these defamation lawsuits. Two of them, including the Parkland shooting and the Sandy Hook massacre. What do you think is the trajectory for those lawsuits?
I think a number of them will probably end up with apologies in the same way that Hamdi Ulukaya and the guy at Comet Ping Pong, James Alefantis, Alex gave those public apologies and then the lawsuits went away. I think some of them might go that road, but I highly doubt that the Sandy Hook one will. I think that those parents will probably not settle, which I think is good. But I also don't know. I'm not entirely clear on it, and we'll have to see how the judge treats it. But I don't think that he's said that they were actors or that it was all fake within the statute of limitations. So I don't know if he's going to be found guilty. But there are some indications, like from some of the briefs that I was reading, that the intention is to demonstrate that he did say those things and that within the statute of limitations, he's implied things that would lead you to believe that he still believes what he said like in 2015. So if they allow that as an argument, I think he's screwed. But there's a decent chance he could end up winning just based on statute of limitations issues. And if that happens, I don't want to be around anymore, because can you imagine how much of an asshole he'll be if he beat the Sandy Hook families in court?
Oh man,
he would be insufferable, just screaming about like, you tried to take me down and I beat you in court. I'm right and I always have been. That would be horrible.
But it might be even worse if he loses and has to pay damages. What his fans are going to act worse.
Yeah, possibly. Or it could just be like it could be game over, like it could be once this isn't financially viable for him, he's not going to do this anymore. I understand that he wasn't making a ton of money in the early days, but that's when he still had a vigor in him and he still was alive and excited about fighting the globalists and stuff. He hasn't cared in years. He's going through the motions and he's tasted what it's like to be super rich, to have mansions and boats and nice cars and stuff like that. If he has to pay for what he's done to people and loses all of that wealth, he won't be able to have the $1 million studio anymore. He was fine, like broadcasting out of his dad's dental office for years, but he wouldn't be now because he's had the other thing. So I think ultimately, you know, it would be a rough transition, and some of his fans might be awful if he loses that court case and stuff. But I think it could also just end up with, you know, a disappearing. Like he's not going to do a podcast or something like that. And that's one of the things I keep thinking about is like all of these people who want to like get him to pay some sort of a consequence for his actions and stuff like that. And everybody's pretending that there isn't a way to do it. Like you can't boycott his stuff. And you can. You just have to boycott the Genesis Communications Network. That's it. Like if they had their sponsors leave them, then Alex is screwed. I don't know.
And they're not huge. It's not hard to avoid them.
No.
Yeah.
No, but they would probably, at least some of them probably would crumble to like bunches of people sending letters and stuff like that. I don't know. Those are something I was thinking about. It's like all these people who are like, he's so awful, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there is. Just go to the source. It's Ted Anderson. Go send him a letter.
I think you're right with the Sandy Hook statues, and also this case doesn't have a precedent when it comes to free speech. Like he's accusing the families of fraud, but that's different than accusing someone of being specifically of being a murderer, which is the situation with Parkland, which I think for the Parkland shooting, where he falsely identified the Parkland shooter.
Yeah.
And a guy in a Communist Party shirt that, yeah. And he, I think that one's a slam dunk because there's precedent for that, which includes the Boston Marathon bombing, where the New York Post lost the lawsuit against who they identified as the Boston bombers.
I know that his argument was kind of like, well, my reporter found that on 4chan, and then we reported on it. Now, remember the rebuttal to that being, that's an anonymous post.
I'm not the original reporter. I'm not the one who reported. I was just talking about other stuff. Yeah.
We don't know that your reporter didn't put that on 4chan and then report on it from that. Like, with anonymous sourcing like that on message boards, it's not... Yeah, I remember that being a real flimsy argument that Alex had. But also, I think it was it Adon Salazar or whatever, who the actual reporter was? I can't remember, but whoever it was, I think they're the one who's most responsible for that. So Alex might dodge like a ton of responsibility, but you probably still take a hit. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Jones has probably been the most deplatformed person on the internet, being so toxic that no social media or platform and organization wants to have him on as an app, as posting his videos, posting his show. Why do you think him specifically they've wanted to avoid like the plague? Like usually sponsors, they'll just leave, but it usually hasn't resulted in this where someone's been deplatformed all the way.
I don't know. It'd be hard for me to assume to know what Google or YouTube or any of these companies were thinking. But I think I've expressed this on the show. I don't think there's coordination between them or anything. It's just, I think they've wanted to kick Alex off for a long time. Like, he's a bad influence to have on your platform. And then once somebody did, everyone's like, all right, let's go. We can all do it now. But each thinking independently, like, we have cover because this site kicked him off. So we can all take the heat together of any criticism that comes from it. And obviously, the reason you wouldn't want him on your site is because of the issues like the Sandy Hook stuff. Like, because he's so irresponsible and such a bad reporter, he ends up lying about things, putting out toxic, cancerous ideas into your platform. Like, let's just say Twitter, for example. And that these messages that he's putting out into the world have real-world consequences. Like, he always says, I didn't send people to Sandy Hook families' houses. And that's just, you know, saying that he didn't order people to go, which is fine, fair enough. But that rhetoric existing on, for instance, Twitter, tons and tons and tons of people see it. And some of those people may be influenced to act on the information. And that's all he does. Like, Sandy Hook is only one example, but there's hundreds and hundreds of examples throughout his career of things that if you believe they are true, why would you not hurt people? Like, why would you not? He's talking about like people being demonic, satanic pedophiles, and like Hillary Clinton drinks blood and stuff like that. Like, why wouldn't you hurt her? Why? Like, there's no. It's not an insane idea to think whatever he says has like could be taken very dangerously. And so if I were in their position, I probably would. I don't know. I would have kicked him off long ago. It wouldn't have ever gotten to 2018 with him probably. But that's just my assumptions of what their decision making was like. I don't pretend to know how these startups and social media things work, but
Yeah, I agree with you that it is the media companies are self-conscious about, like, they're probably following the same rule when it comes to terrorists. Like, they don't want to be having their finger pointed at as people that were the media company that was responsible for people sharing terroristic messages with one another, such as Al Qaeda, which Twitter's done a good job trying to combat that. But like, same thing with that, they don't want to be blamed for Sandy Hook harassment of victims.
well, there comes down to a certain point where I don't know. There is a slight responsibility that the platform has if these things are happening on it. Like if there is like coordination or inspiration for attacks and stuff like that. I don't know what the legal standard is, but it does seem like it's entirely possible that you could get in trouble if you're a social media account or a company.
Yeah, legally, I don't think they have an issue. Like if they're like I don't think there's a law saying that you can't um you can't be held liable for this message being spread to another
Yeah,
person.
yeah, it's
Like
good. I guess Gab would be gone by now if that were the case, because there's so many like clear instances of people being pretty clear about their intentions to go. I don't know, like shooting up that Jewish temple. You know, there were people posting about that on Gab. Uh, so yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it probably isn't a legal consideration, but there certainly is a PR one.
yeah, and the response from uh, I would say people on the right has been really confusing. Like they're making this a free speech issue, which it is, but not a First Amendment issue. That's the confusion people get when it comes to free speech and the First Amendment. The First Amendment does not protect you from from your employer or someone you do business with that doesn't want to associate with you.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's the government can't control your speech or can't limit your speech.
And that's it.
Right. But that's why Alex has to make the argument that like Google is really the government and they're all working in coordination, because then he gains the appearance of it actually being a First Amendment issue or free speech in terms of the First Amendment. It's all very dumb, but it also just goes back to him not understanding civics. Like he talks about how if this court case can go through, it will effectively undo the First Amendment, and that's absurd. That's not how amendments work. That's not how the Constitution works. If it is an unconstitutional court case, then he can appeal it and it will get overturned. Like, in order for the First Amendment to be affected, you have to, it has to, what, 2/3 of the Senate has to vote it? 2/3 of the states have to.
Long time.
Yeah, it's an absurdly difficult process. Yeah, but that's what he has to do. He has to create the perception that that's the oppression he's facing, when in reality, it's just people don't like that you've hurt them, and these are the consequences of your actions. That's really what's going on for him, and I don't know. He's kind of a child. He doesn't deal with things very well.
And the response, like, would you have ever dreamed in your lifetime that people on the right and conservatives and I think Alex Jones maybe mentioned a couple times, have come out in support of nationalizing these social media companies?
That is wild.
Like making them what they call a public forum, which is debatable, but it's not really something conservatives have been for ever.
No, I think that conversation is worth having, but not because of Alex or anything like that. Yeah, it is very weird. But I think that the conservative movement, and I don't mean this to be like all conservatives or all Republicans or anything like that, because I know that it's as diverse a group as some, maybe not as diverse as others. But I think that the conservative movement has been largely taken over, especially in terms of media, certainly, by con men. Like these people are all running cons. The people who you're talking about who are taking up his issue as a free speech issue are generally people who are also con men, people like a Mike Cernovich or Jack Posobiec, or people like Tucker Carlson. These are con men, and they are the voice. They're the large public voice of what conservatism is right now, and that's why it's siding with Alex, is because these are unprincipled con men, as opposed to people who actually have an interest in conservative ideas or principles. At least that's my view of it. That's how I see what's going on in front of us.
Speaking of um, Trump, Alex Jones has also expressed favorability towards Russia even before Trump ran for president, talking about why we need to be nice for Russia no matter what they do. And what do you think has attracted him to Russia before Trump?
I think he was really afraid of Putin when Putin came to power right around 2000, beginning of 2000. Because we listened to that Y2K episode, and he calls Putin like resembling a demon, and he's Vladimir the Ruthless.
The Ruthless, yeah.
And so like something changed at some point, and I think it probably had to do with that Vladimir Putin is a guy who was in international relations in the KGB for many years. He's very good at presentation of things, and he's very good at publicity and propaganda. And so I think, like, I'm not here to say that they targeted Alex or anything like that, but the certain things and the ways that they presented Vladimir Putin as a ruler are things that were very appealing to Alex. So as a side product, somewhere between 2000 and 2009, so I can confirm he's super into Russia by 2009, in that span somewhere, whatever the sort of narrative and presentation of Putin was, got to be enough that Alex was like, this guy is a man, number one. He's a heterosexual man. He doesn't like the globalists. He's strong. He, I don't know, maybe technically probably killed a guy. A lot of things that Alex really likes. And I think he just became, like he had a sort of politics crush on him. I think that's probably explains a lot of where that came from. But to speak more specifically about it, I'd need a lot of episodes of his show that I don't have access to. So unfortunately, I have to leave this sort of an open question. But I think he just likes the masculinity aspect of it, and that Putin claims he's a Christian. You know, he's like
bullshit.
Sure, but but that's the presentation of it. And Alex is like, oh, a straight male Christian white ruler, hooray! I like this. And it could be that simple.
You think he's got something on Alex Jones, such as trans porn on his phone?
I think everyone has that on Alex,
or at least something more than that we already know about.
I don't know. It's kind of it's dumb to speculate on, for me at least, just because of the position that I'm in with, I try not to say many things about Alex that I can't really defend. And I couldn't defend that. If I were to say that they have some sort of a blackmail on him or anything like that, I don't really have any indication that that's the case, because everything that Alex does could be very simply tied back to Alex being stupid and being tricked by propaganda as much as he tricks others with it. Because it does appear that over the years he has internalized a lot of things that he shouldn't believe. And it could be that simple. Like, Russia's very good at propaganda and media penetration and stuff like that. So they could have put out messages, and Alex is just like, this is my team. I love these guys. Or they do have blackmail. Who knows? That's possible too. He's a crazy dude. Like, Alex is a crazy drunk. Like, it's insane to think what someone could have on him. I'm sure he gets really drunk and like goes to, or at least in his younger days, would go to bars and like just talk so much crazy shit. I bet anybody listening could have recorded him admitting to a crime. I mean, he said on air that he killed a guy. Like, what? He's got loose lips.
Oh, or I think is more likely the case, Putin is a team player when it comes to conspiracy theories. I mean, going back to the 1960s, Russia's been promoting conspiracy theories about the United States.
You can go back even further than that.
Yeah.
It's a long tradition.
They made the Protocols of Zion book hoax. They're the ones that were behind that. They spread the The U.S. invented the AIDS virus that's had a traumatic effect in Africa. Like,
Yep.
and Putin's just a helping hand to them. That's why he probably plays into his hands because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. He'll just go
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, and especially when you believe that the United States is the major player in an international globalist conspiracy of demonics, Satanists, or whatever, then the person whose state-controlled media most closely attacks the United States, it would seem like that would be attractive to him, and that enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of way. Same justification he had for liking Trump was the idea that like he's being attacked by all the people who I don't like, therefore he must be great. It's just a bad way to go through life. I mean, it's very difficult to exist like that. You end up defending really bad positions just because you don't like somebody, I guess.
Before 2016, I would have said conspiracy theories are that like they're going in a nosedive. This is not gonna they're not gonna drive elections and stuff. But after 2016, which is what made me start the page,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I changed my mind, saying that okay, these things are driving elections. They're getting out of control, not just in the United States with Trump, because he's encourages conspiratorial mindset with Americans, but also internationally. Like in Hungary, they've gotten big in the elections with George Soros conspiracies.
Mm-hmm. With Orban and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, and in South America, we're seeing a lot of destabilization that has propaganda related to it. Yeah, I agree with you, and it's only going to get worse as technology gets better. Like the idea of the technologies that are sort of in their infancy right now, in terms of faking videos of people saying things, like the ability to really, really screw things up in a major way by creating a fake video of some world leader saying, "I declare war on X country," and that's just like a simple example of it. There's 100 other
that's,
things that could be done. It's really scary, and I think people do need to be aware of that.
and the CIA back in I don't know if it was during Desert Storm or what, but they tried to make a fake gay sex tape with Saddam Hussein in order to
Wow,
causes people to go against him.
that's
Uh,
nuts.
but yeah, like I would have thought social media would have made it better, but it's actually made it worse. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, the sort of the bombardment of things. Like you think that because everybody has access to tons more information, they'll be able to sort through what's real and what's not. But because people are just flooded and inundated with like bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, you just become numb to it, and you start to believe things that you see, that you glance at, as opposed to ever looking into stuff. I think that if people aren't careful, that tendency can definitely come up. I mean, it's certainly been something that I've had to check in my own uh, life.
YouTube has been fighting back against conspiracy, or they said they're trying to fight back against conspiracy theories. Um, do you think that's going to be effective, or do you think they're approaching it the wrong way?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I have a position on it. I think that I think that defining that kind of stuff is really hard, and it's really dangerous to really try too much. I feel like everybody who has channels and stuff like that, as best as possible, should be taken on a case by case basis. And if the things that they're saying and putting out into the world are potentially very dangerous, deceitful, like if they're based in lies and they hurt people, then I understand why YouTube wouldn't want to have it on the platform. But if you just say conspiracy theories, it really does become an issue of definition. Like, what is a conspiracy theory to you and what is one to me might even be we might have different definitions. And then you take, what does like a $1 billion business think a conspiracy theory is? I don't know, things that are critical of YouTube. There are possibilities to abuse that, and I'm not comfortable with that. At the same time, their algorithms do suck in terms of recommending videos, and a lot of people have done some pretty good research into how YouTube's recommendations it does serve as a pathway towards radicalization. Like you look into one video and then you'll end up with something more extreme, and on and on and on. And so fixing that, I think, would be positive. Yeah, but too general of an action, I think, could be dangerous. Other than that, I don't really know. I don't know.
I did an interview with Edward Current. He's posted some videos critical of 9/11 conspiracies and Sandy Hook truthers. Both of us have been affected by this negatively. I posted a meme making the joke, "What do Bigfoot and crisis actors have in common? Not one has ever been captured."
Mm-hmm.
And the reason mine was flagged on Facebook for bullying and harassment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked into it, we were trying to figure out how could this possibly result in this. I tried to appeal it, but nothing happened.
Hmm.
I think it was Facebook's lazy way of flagging every image on Facebook that has pictures from the Sandy Hook massacre. Like they probably have a database of a bunch of Sandy Hook pictures. Like mine featured that infamous picture of the teacher crying on her phone, like that, and that's the one I was using. But I was using it to criticize Sandy Hook truthers. But yeah, they flagged it for that. And also with Edward Current, he posted a video in which it was a parody of him coming out as a crisis actor, saying this is me at Columbine, this is me at Abu Ghraib. The makeup artist did great with the feces.
That's the issue. Their systems aren't capable of capturing what intention there is there. So you guys are examples of why having too much of a broad policy could be dangerous, because you catch all these things in your net, and they're not conspiracy theories. But if you make that blanket sort of rule, then people who criticize conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theories inevitably will be in a similar basket. And I don't know how you get around that. Like, I don't know how you implement the policy that doesn't also include that negative side effect. Like, our show would probably be in trouble.
Oh yeah,
I would assume.
Maybe if Google did something lazy with our algorithm and just filtered all mentions of crisis actors and certain conspiracies, that may affect us all skeptics very negatively.
Yeah, or like Alex Jones, like he's in the description of most of our episodes. If there's some sort of a thing where it's like, all right, things that have to do with Alex Jones are, we delist them or whatever, whatever they were to do, then yeah, we would end up, being affected by that. I think that's one of the issues with, like, you want to make positive changes to the way these ecosystems, these social media ecosystems exist, but you have to be very careful about it for those sorts of reasons. And I don't think that anyone has a good answer for it yet, but I bet something will come up. I think people are working in the right direction. I think. I might be totally wrong, but I think they are, and I hope they figure out something eventually.
Well, with you, your show I wouldn't worry about, because your show has grown exponentially. I'm not able to see how many views you get, but I see how many Patreons you get. They're just coming to you guys.
It's super weird, and I'm actually humbled, and I have days of intense self-doubt because of that. Like, I was much more comfortable doing this show when me and Jordan thought nobody was listening, and the numbers backed that up. When it was very few people, it sort of made sense that, like, all right, our show is stupid. We talk about Alex Jones. We care about this, but why would anybody else want to listen to this? And now, as we've gotten further in, we just a little bit over 2 years now we've been doing the show. Yeah, it's exploded, and it is weird. I don't understand why people like the show, but I'm glad they do. It's a mess. It's people. I don't know. I'm glad they do, but it's confusing.
Not always on your show you talk about Alex Jones. Sometimes you may take a break and talk about people like Pastor Manning or Project Camelot. Could you
Space weirdos?
Could you give us a little background on that?
In the 2008 election, maybe it was 2012. I can't remember exactly, but I saw a video of Pastor Manning screaming, and I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Because he just does scream. He's like, bah, bah, like from the pulpit. It's insanity. And so I've always had a little bit of a, like, in the back of my mind, like, if I ever do something that is appropriate for it, I want to talk about him. And then he was on Alex's show. He's a guest, or at least he used to be. And so that gave us the opportunity to bring him into the conversation. And we do like little side episodes about Alex's friends, who are real assholes. And then in terms of Project Camelot, that's sort of just a thing that I love. I've always loved, like I said earlier, I like conspiracy theories and message boards and stuff like that, not for believing them, but for entertainment. And one of the things that I've always really loved is people who believe in Atlantis. Like, I'm not judging them. I don't think they're stupid. I understand why that idea is super appealing to people, because it's very appealing to me as well. I just don't think it's real. But through some of that stuff, I found Project Camelot. And as we were doing the show, I realized we can't just talk about this horrifying monster of a dude. We need something to break things up a little bit. And Project Camelot is so perfect because Carrie Cassidy, the person who runs that, is also a con man. Like, she's running a scam on people. And as I was listening to it with the understanding of Alex that I have from listening to so much of him, you start to realize there's a lot of parallels between their versions of the world. Like, she doesn't talk about globalists that much, but they're definitely a part of her worldview. And Alex thinks that these, Rockefellers and Rothschilds and stuff like that they're up there at the top, and Carrie just believes there's also aliens. And so their worldviews are shockingly similar, and you wouldn't think that it would be. And so tracing those parallels is super fun. And then now that Alex is going on Rogan's show and saying that aliens are behind everything, the differences between them are very slim. Like, if you listen to, we have an episode that's going to come out soon. It's another Project Camelot one. And listening to it after you listen to Alex on Rogan, it's shocking, the similarities between, like, this guest on Carrie Cassidy's space show is saying that the military takes their orders from transdimensional satanic aliens, which is literally what Alex was saying on Rogan's show. But somehow people don't realize that Alex is just as crazy as these people on Project Camelot. They act like he has some sort of actual secret information, and he doesn't. He's just making shit up. But yeah, we try and keep it fresh. We try and talk about a couple other side issues. They're always related, though. It's crazy. I get surprised by how connected a lot of this stuff is. Like, not literally connected, but themes. There's themes that run through a lot of these sort of right-wing leaning con men. They have very similar approaches and worldviews that you wouldn't expect to see. It's kind of scary a little bit, actually.
Talking about other people like that, is that your way of expanding the show? Instead of just talking about Alex Jones, do you have further plans for that?
I'm sorry. I couldn't make that out. I think the call glitched a little.
Oh, you talking about like Manning and Project Camelot, is that your way of expanding the show? Do you guys have other plans to talk about other stuff, or are you good talking mainly about Alex Jones?
I'm definitely fine talking about just Alex Jones for now. I don't know, in the same way that I was saying that we just sort of decided to do the show and then did it. We didn't really have a plan. It's sort of still the same in many ways. I don't have a plan for, like, what does it look like if Alex gets kicked off the air?
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, or if he got hit by a bus out of the picture, like, what? Would you guys still do the show?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's
plenty of content.
Yeah, there's tons of years and years of old episodes, and I've been on a hunt for a lot of his old stuff that isn't really available anywhere online. And if I were able to make some sort of inroads with that, there's decades of lies and stuff. And I think if you, like, ultimately, all I want to do is understand better how this happened. This guy, how did this guy happen? How did he become relevant? How did he sort of shift the Overton window so crazily? Like it or not, he was a big part of that. The window shifting towards the insane. And I don't think him being alive or on the air is really relevant to my investigation of that. No matter what happens, I still have a lot of clues left to find in old episodes that could help with that. So his actual life is pretty inconsequential to me. Not in the sense that I want him harmed or anything like that, but
no.
I don't care what he does, except as far as it hurts other people. I care about the impact and the consequences of his rhetoric and stuff like that, but I'm not super interested in a lot of his drama and acting out and stuff like that. His publicity stunts, and I don't know. Even the lawsuit, I'm not really super interested in, because I know that there is a court. Like that's their job. Once they have the actual trial, I might be interested, and we can look into it. But for now, I just want to understand better. And I want a fuller, because there's a story here that I can't even really tell yet, and no one can. I don't think Alex could. I don't think he knows what's happened to him, and I think it's an important story to at least try to tell. So that's the only goal I have. It's very non-specific, but that's where I see the show going. And then if at some point we figure out things and it just becomes boring, because that can happen sometimes, if that were to happen, then I guess there's tons of other right-wing con men that we could jump over to. We could, go whole hog on Cernovich or Tucker Carlson or any, there's a lot of options. Rush Limbaugh, even.
All right, I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. I really appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm sorry if I've been rambling or talking too much.
Oh no, that's even better.
Okay, great,
yeah,
great.
The more discussion we have, the better. So, where can people follow Knowledge Fight at?
We're on Twitter at knowledge_fight. We have a page on Facebook. Our website's knowledgefight.com, but like honestly, on social media stuff, I'm not very active on those things. I don't know how much it does anything to post on Twitter a whole bunch, or our Facebook audience isn't that large, and it doesn't. I don't know. I'm old. I'm too old for the social media stuff, I feel. So people are welcome to follow, and we'll post things every now and again, but it's not a rollicking awesome page to follow. Wow, I really did the opposite of selling our social media. That's not good. Oh well.
People can just go to knowledgefight.com.
Yeah, that's our website where we have a bit of information, and there's sort of a database of information about Alex's guests and some of his narratives and stuff like that. I've been working on building that, and it's going to expand. But right now, there's sort of the basic version of it they can find on knowledgefight.com if they have more interest or curiosity about some of his rhetoric.
Yeah, if any of you guys out there are creating a dossier on Alex Jones, go to knowledgefight.com.
Yeah, there's some resources for you.
All right, Dan, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate talking to you.
You have a good day.
You too. Take it easy.